we are here right now at the Tribeca Film Festival, and I'm so excited to be able to interview two very special people right now. This is, I guess, the main part of the team behind Like a Rolling Stone, the life and times of Ben-Fong Torres. And so please start by introducing yourselves, and then we'll get into the interview.
All right. This is Suzanne Joe Kai, the producer and director of the film, and I'm Ben-Fong Torres. I'm in it.
Yes, you are. Thanks so much for joining us. I'm super excited about this film. So let's start, as they say at the beginning. How did this kind of, come to be? What's the relationship between, the two of you, and did you really have to pull him to get into this, or was he already ready to be a star?
Well, Ben has always been a star, and so that was not even an issue. For me, it was actually over dinner. He was flying into Los Angeles, and I was working in media, and I brought one of our crew members to dinner, and I think just over dinner, I just said, Ben, you're in everybody else's documentary, rock and roll documentary, but why isn't there one about you? And Ben said, well, then why don't you just do one?
Bitch.
And I thought,
Go for it, girl.
Yeah, and I said, yeah, let's do it.
Wait, I remember none of this.
Oh, okay.
I've never been to Los Angeles. No, you mentioned the name Q in context.
Yes, he was calling me and says, hey, I'm coming from Los Angeles. I'm flying in from San Francisco to Los Angeles. I have a meeting with Q. Mm-hmm. And
Q meaning
thought,
Quincy Jones, correct?
Q, I know who Q is. That's Quincy Jones. So we did have dinner after his meeting, and that's how that all started.
We have to sort this out somehow, because I remember going to Los Angeles to see Quincy, because we, for a while there, had a book project we were working on together, so I needed to go to his place and interview him, chat. And so I had cause to be there, but I don't remember a dinner with Suzanne with a crew member. Apparently she takes a camera with her wherever she goes, and a lighting person.
Yeah.
So really the truth, I guess, is somewhere between both of this, right?
Yes.
But what year was this, though?
Oh, a long time ago.
Can we at least agree on the year?
Probably. Well, I probably have it time-stamped on the photos.
Yeah, over 10 years ago.
It was.
More than 10 years.
So when did you actually start work, though, on the film formally?
Pretty close to immediately.
Really?
So, yes.
So this is really a project that has been in the works for that long?
Yes.
Well, aside from the birth of, Ben.
I was a mere senior citizen when it started. And now I'm an elder.
Oh my gosh. So really, how did you go about, Suzanne? Because of course, for Filmio, we have fans who are watching, investors, and of course, filmmakers. And so I know the filmmakers will be very interested in understanding, how did you go about really shaping this when you have a figure like Ben, who has such a legendary and a wide kind of career, right? How did you start to decide, how did you pull these different items? And as I was even looking at the film, how was there so much, footage from back in the day? Because I'm thinking about now you'd have your phone and whatever. This was real full on. Somebody was shooting, these items, whether you were at your desk or with Mick Jagger or the Beatles, whatever. It's just amazing to be able to really see this footage. So how did this all come about?
Well, first of all, the footage, Ben's footage is absolutely incredible. It's so rare. It's historic. And so when he would show me these tapes that are, half a century old, I would hand carry them on the airplane, and, nobody would ever, touch these things until I can get to the restoration people. And they would carefully restore them.
Really?
And we never let them out. We wouldn't have other people, we'd hand carry, and then we would hand transcribe all of these.
Back in the early 70s, there were very few home movies.
Right.
Our staff members didn't bring cameras to work and all of that, but Rolling Stone became something of renown, and therefore crews came by to shoot for the BBC. And there was this one radical group called TV. They might have been from Canada. They had a critical view of Rolling Stone. They came in with an attitude, and so you can sort of see me snarling as I'm going through my albums, answering their questions about payola and stuff like that. But they came by for several days and shot around in the offices. They got Ralph J. Gleason, they got me, they got a few others. They happened to be on the scene the day Al Green came by. And it was John Winter's and my birthdays. Both were born on a January 7th. And so I was working on a piece on Reverend Green, and so I told him, we're having a little birthday cake. You want to come by? And he came by.
Okay.
And so that's him in his plaid jacket hanging out. So we had already known each other by that time, because I'd done some stuff on him before. Anyway, that kind of footage helped out. And the one of me quick typing, some other crew came by one time to do a report on Rolling Stone, and somehow we found Suzanne and her team found that footage.
So this was just very, very fortunate. So then you're going through all of this. How do you begin to start to, have it take shape and decide what you're going to leave in, what not? I mean, there's so much, and I'm sure every filmmaker, goes through this. We were talking a bit off camera how even writers, go through this as well when you have so much and you want to share all of that, right, with the audience. How did you make these decisions, Suzanne?
It was really difficult initially, but then it became much easier because it became, for me at least, very apparent because of Ben's life. It was the storyline became a lot more clear. What happened is I'm a journalist, and I was a television journalist for the NBC station in San Francisco. So understanding, I did a very deep dive into what is it like to be in the original Rolling Stone operations? What was that? What were they thinking? How do they approach stories? And I came away with a completely different story because of that.
And sometimes it's like that.
Yeah,
right?
and I kind of did research in the reverse. So in doing the deep dive, I didn't want to be affected by what was already written out there by third-party sources. I wanted to go directly to the source. So what I did was I blocked out everything that was in a movie and a book. And I didn't want to read those until after I had really gotten the initial research that I had recorded with the sources. And so having done that, I knew what I had from the direct sources, the people that worked alongside Ben, the people who, Jan Wenner, for example, Annie Leibovitz, Cameron Crowe, all of those fantastic people. And then I pulled back and went wide to see what was in books and films and all of that. And to my surprise, what we uncovered it doesn't really show up in a lot of books or movies at all. So we knew then we're crafting something that is a new story about Ben.
Very special.
A very completely new story. And then I started to get really angry. I would say, let me just own it. I really got angry as a journalist because I said, why isn't this what he has done in American history?
Well, I was thinking about that as well as I looked particularly at the segment on Ray Charles, because that was my grandmother's personal favorite. And when you hear, you talk about, just really that experience and deciding why isn't Ray Charles getting more, kind of shine, right, as we would say in hip hop, and, you being that force to say, and we need to do this piece on this person.
Right.
And then him talking about confronting, racism in the music industry and all of that. Really
racism
priceless.
in life,
Really priceless.
basically, as a kid, yeah.
Right.
As a blind person, becoming a musical genius, and even as a star, having to weather and survive the segregation and racism that went on.
Right.
And so, yeah, he got almost as angry as Suzanne did, thinking about his
You
life.
could really hear that
Yeah.
the force in his voice, and I think most of us think of Ray Charles as very, I don't know, just kind of easygoing or whatever.
No.
Because that's how he would seem on stage, right? But that was the first time I had heard him actually speak as a human being, right, as opposed to a star, right, and not being able to just use the bathroom as a regular human being, and actually saying that race was harder to deal with than being blind.
Yeah.
These are really, really important types of statements to hear, right?
Right.
But what about the notables in the film where you just happen to be, backstage present day with your homeboy Elton John, etc.? How did these things come together, and how difficult or easy was that to pull off? The shooting of it, the organizing of it, etc.
Yeah, there were a couple of big surprises with Steve Martin and Elton John. With Sir Elton, it was Cameron Crowe was doing a documentary with Elton about their buddy Leon Russell. And at some point, Elton said something like, I still read Rolling Stone, but it's not really Rolling Stone without Ben-Fong Torres in it. So Cameron runs to his little typewriter and sends me an email that says that. Hey, look what Elton said. So I kept that scrap of paper because that was really nice. And at one point, when she came around to do the film, I said, hey, by the way, there's this. And so then she took over from there and got him.
Nice, nice. How big was your team, Suzanne, to put all this together?
It was a very small team, actually. But the lucky thing is our film was in Film Independent Documentary Lab way back in 2014. We thought we were finished then, you know? That was before I started to continue to uncover these incredible pieces of history that are not in any books. And I said, wait. So anyway, that's where I met Doug Blush, who has stayed with us all the way through to get us past the finish line even today, which is incredible.
And who was your producer?
Advisor on the documentary lab, Doug Blush, and he's been involved in many documentaries, so he has the experience that just so fantastic. So a huge thank you to him, and also to Frida Lee Mock, who is an Oscar winner, a documentary filmmaker, who has also been helping us advise. So we have a very small team, but a great team, a really fantastic, talented team.
Wonderful. Now, what about budget? So, because of course, like I said, filmmakers will be watching this, and a lot of people don't, have access to budget to be able to make their dreams come true. What advice might you have, one, for those who are looking to raise budget and who are more, indie? And how did you do it with this, right? Because, there was a lot of time that had to be, involved in all this, right?
Exactly.
And your time has to be compensated and all that, and editors. How did all that work out?
So I think in my case, I suppose we were really fortunate because I had my own personal savings, and don't do what I did. Do not use your savings.
Max out your cards.
Don't use it. You don't do that. But that's what I did, and so I felt the freedom without any kind of pressure to just do the research and to get the project started. Then my normal, because I've also been in a different industry, that I would do this kind of get the work started as a kind of proof of concept in a different industry. And then that's when I would present it to potential, funders or donors or that sort of thing. And that's exactly what I did on this film. So I did the first proof of concept, and with my own personal savings, but don't do that. If you can get grants early, that would be fantastic. So, we have had incredible support. National Association of Latino Independent Producers, and I actually applied for an intern who is our project was accepted, but then she couldn't actually accept the fellowship. And so I called to say thank you, but we're not going to be able to attend. And they said, why not? And I said, well, she is the person that I wanted to participate in your fellowship because it would benefit her, being Latina. And then they called me right back and said, no, we're very inclusive. And I said, well, Ben-Fong Torres, the Torres is
that part?
Not, so full disclosure, and but thank you very, very much, and I really appreciate it. And I hung up. And then they said, no. Then I had 24 hours to sleep on that, and I said, by the next day, I said, yes, I'm going to call them back. I'm going to say yes, because they wanted us to come, and that was a life changer.
Great.
That fellowship was an incredible life changer. So that's, in other programs, the Producers Guild has a Power of Diversity Fellowship. That's another life changer for our film.
Wow, so you really had to stay with this, and obviously had to kind of almost investigate, as you're investigating like Ben's life, you're investigating roots for this at the same time. Right?
Absolutely.
And so it really is, I guess, as they say, like a burden of love, right? And you did this over a 10-year period, so this is really, I guess, a prime example of stamina, right, in filmmaking.
Yes, I suppose, and also just realizing that you're working with real American history that should be in the books, that should be taught in the schools, that should be inspiring our current and future generations. And where is it? It was
Right.
missing, you know.
Great. And so to be now showing here at the festival, it must be, I mean, almost a dream come true, correct?
It is.
That's so
I'm
wonderful,
so happy.
wonderful.
And I might mention, we've kept this under wraps for all these years. And it was very, very good advice early on. And we've kept it, we're kind of like in a foxhole for all these years, you know, just very quiet. And for a lot of reasons. And I finally said, okay, 2 years ago, we're going to show 5 minutes at a gala. It was at Historical Society in San Francisco. And I showed it, and I was actually in the lobby just, you know, watching the audience. And the people would be coming out, and then they would be saying, oh my gosh, I had no idea. Had I known that Ben-Fong Torres had done all this, this is only a 5-minute trailer, my life could have been different. And that was a very powerful statement for me, and that kept me going to finish this film.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So we are missing role models of our own people. You know, we're missing the stories. We need to tell our stories and our stories of our communities.
And what about distribution? You don't have distribution of the film just yet, correct?
No, but we
Okay.
have received inquiries.
Okay.
And so
So then that's
we're pretty
going to be the
excited.
next part of the journey,
Yes.
correct? Ben, do you get any say-so in that or not?
Oh, no, I watch all the channels. So wherever it pops up, as long as I have my TV guide with me, I'll be fine.
Very
Yes.
cool. So what did you think about this process, though, from your own, personal perspective? Obviously, I've talked with Michelle about more of, the business side of things. But, just being the subject of this, and you really did share, a lot. I don't want to give, too much away, and some things about your family and more. What did you think about that? Is it, as they say, very cathartic? Was it challenging at a certain point, even as the subject of a documentary? Do you say, I don't want to do this, and, it goes back and forth,
All of
different
that.
days?
All of that. Yeah, I never thought of myself as worthy of that kind of a role, to be the center of a documentary film. But I've trusted Suzanne Sinsley a long time ago. We'll just say that, when she was a broadcaster in San Francisco. So I've known of her. And over the years, when she created a site called AsianConnections.com, I volunteered to write a column for it. So that was all through the 80s and probably into the 90s probably. And
That was started by my young son at the time, trying to find his identity. And no, it's not a dating site.
Oh.
No,
that's why I
it
went
is-
on there.
No. It actually is about his search for identity, and it's the first time that we finally could have a voice. Other people were writing for it as well. At that time, there are not a lot of voices, Asian American voices, and their stories.
So when she came to me, I was hesitant, didn't think it was deserved, didn't know what it would involve, but had a basic trust in her choice of a subject for a documentary. And so we did it. And I will say that I had learned a lot. I did not know what my fellow staff members, some musicians, were thinking, or what they thought about me. I had no idea, in part because that was never the focus of my life, was how well I got along with some of the artists I wrote about. I could care less. It was just get that story. And if a friendship evolves or a certain amount of mutual respect, that's bonus, basically. And the same in life. So I was shocked, I tell you, shocked to see some of the stuff that came out in this film. And she wouldn't show. Talk about being in a foxhole. I didn't see it until I saw those 5 minutes at the gala.
Very complimentary.
And then
very
the whole thing
complimentary.
only recently. And so I am enormously honored and blessed.
That's wonderful. I'm sure everybody asks you this who interviews you, but what is, aside from what you spoke about maybe in the film, what's, I guess, maybe your favorite interview that you've ever done?
Well,
Or
yeah,
the most intriguing one.
almost
Aside,
like a
and you can't say Paul McCartney. Like you
six-pack
said in the film.
answer. There's so many with
Right.
Diane Keaton and Steve Martin and Crawford
Okay,
Still
let's
Nathan
narrow it
Young.
down.
And,
Let's narrow it down.
but
Recording artist.
one favorite, Ray Charles.
Yeah,
But
still.
we spoke about Ray already, so Marvin Gaye.
Okay, yeah, that's in the film, no shoot though.
And the
But
reason
yeah.
for Marvin Gaye is because here was a personality I had known since I was a kid, listening to Motown, all his first hits, and on TV. and then you encounter this guy who had just had the greatest artistic achievement of his life. An album, What's Going On, that is still #1 in most people's minds as the all-time best album. Sorry, Sgt. Peppers. But, and then you meet this guy, and he's sweet and nice and insecure. He had no idea what he would do next. He knew he had done something special, but as to what he would do next, he had no clue. And he had these dreams in young middle age. He was about 34, 35 when we met. And he was talking about joining the Detroit Lions and being a wide receiver. And he was managing a boxer. And he had all these other things going on, including music, but he just wasn't sure where he was headed. And it became a very tragic story soon after that. But wow, what a great time. That was the best thing about meeting some of these artists, were they were on your transistor radio, they were in the restaurant my family owned, because I had to escape somehow, so I did it through radio, baseball and top 40 radio. And then to be able to meet so many of these people who came out of the radio speaker, but on a professional basis. That was always a rewarding part of the job, day to day.
And then, so final question, and maybe to you both. We all know, of course, that there's been a lot of, rise in violence against the Asian community. And so I hope that there will be more stories that come out about and from the Asian community, just in general, because typically you have violence when you don't understand, when you don't have relationships, right, when there's no connection. And what I just thought was so cool in the film were, things that I think, even people who followed you, like myself, didn't know, is how much you gave back to the Asian, community from the journalism side and all sides before or back then. What do you see maybe happening going forward, if you had like a crystal ball coming out of like the Asian American community in terms of stories next, given, I guess, just like the climate now?
I think that there is a movement. I just can feel it, of more of us telling our own stories, or our community stories, and I think that we must stand up and tell our stories. That's just bottom line. We have to. Frida Lee Mock, our Oscar-winning mentor, executive producer, she's also leading the charge in her elegant way. But it's very, very important that we do begin to tell our own stories, and not allow this situation happening right now. It's not, I'm actually really proud. I'm wearing this little pin. I'm a descendant of a railroad worker of 150 years ago. So our family actually has been in San Francisco even longer than that, almost 200 years. So we are very American as anyone. So we do want to stop what's going on.
Ben, any thoughts on that?
Well, yes, I think that's the important thing, is to raise one's profile, to be more and more part of not just the community, but of the whole world. And it's great for me to be able to see John Chu, for example, making the rounds right now as a high-profile director because of his work with In the Heights. And before that, a movie whose titled Suzanne Wanted for herself for the documentary, but he took Crazy Rich Asians for himself. But what are you gonna do?
Beautiful.
But yeah, the more
Actually, it's not true. It's his joke. It's a joke.
I do Josh, but yeah, the higher the profile, the better it'll be for all of us.
Absolutely. Well, I can't thank both of you enough. This has been really fun, and I hope that you've found this as entertaining as I have, and stay tuned for the next interview from Filmio.